Lisa. I think a few more people will join in 5, 6 minutes. So if you want, you
Okay.
can already kick things off.
Yeah, sounds
Let's
good.
go.
Great. Well, welcome to this training today. And I keep looking on the other side because of my screen. We figured out all of the technical details, hopefully. Hopefully we can run this smoothly. And so we have 3 people now. I see Luis, Artur, and Mrunal, I hope I pronounced that correctly. And so to the 3 of you, I would like to make this as interactive as possible. So if you would like to turn on your camera, I would love to see you. If not, that's also fine. But at least I would like to keep this as interactive as possible. So if you, thank you so much, much appreciated. Nice to see you. So yeah, I would like to keep this as interactive as possible. So I will ask you a couple of questions and also encourage you to ask me questions. I'll be happy to share as many insights into SimScale, into my position as a talent acquisition manager at SimScale, our recruitment process, anything that might help you, anything that helps you for potentially applying at SimScale or also in general at other companies. So Jousef, I'm not sure if I do need to introduce SimScale a little bit. Would that be helpful?
If you give it 2 minutes, I think that should be fine because people are mostly familiar with what you do.
Okay. Okay, so to basically put it in a nutshell, if you haven't already heard from Jousef anyways, what we do at SimScale, we offer simulation in the cloud. Maybe not so unique anymore these days, but definitely when SimScale was first founded in 2012, we were the very first company to completely offer simulation in the cloud, founded by our 5 founders in 2012. So we had our 10-year anniversary this year, so just in October, actually, just last month. We have our headquarters or our main office in Munich. Currently, we're around 125 employees, coming from around 35 to 40. I actually have to make an actually count again, but yeah, coming from 35 to 40 different countries, working across 8 different time zones, might be even more now. We have 1 more team member joining us from Japan, more than 300,000 users worldwide, and millions of simulation jobs carried out. A little bit, just also as this may help for you in a recruitment process in general or at SimScale, all of our different teams. So we have our sales team, we have pre-sales, customer success, which is post-sales, and then application engineering. So for both customer success and application engineering, we're looking for engineers, so somebody really with a technical background, whereas pre-sales is our account managers, account executives. Doesn't necessarily have to be a technical background necessarily. Then we have general administration, which is people. So I'm part of the people team here at SimScale. We have operations, which is sales operations, revenue operations, and then we have finance. We have our marketing team, product management, and then engineering, which makes up basically the biggest portion of SimScale. So around, I would say 50 to 60 people at the moment are working in engineering in our 8 or actually now 9 different teams. So our platform team, our backend team, machine learning, CFD, meshing, front end, structural, post-processing, CAD, and then we have our infra team as well. So it's a small but growing team. And of course, if you haven't already, if you want to learn more about SimScale, check out Life at SimScale to learn about our culture, teams. So just click on our careers page and you'll be able to find everything. So just a little bit about our teams. About myself, I want to keep it as short as possible, but also maybe interesting to you. I joined SimScale so next year in February. It's actually going to be 3 years. I joined basically 1 month before the pandemic started. So I was in the office for exactly a month, and then we started working remotely. And since then have hired, I should know this actually, but a lot of people. So when I started, we were around 60 to 70 people, or actually no, a little bit more than 70. And now 125 people. Of course, we also sometimes have people leave. Unfortunately, it's part of every company, part of the process, but at least since then, I've been able to recruit in all of our different teams, tech, non-tech, in Germany, in Europe, everywhere, basically. And I'm also involved in employer branding. So really making sure that candidates get to experience what it's like working at SimScale, get to learn about it. But I'm also involved in onboarding, making sure that our new starters have a nice process, feel comfortable at SimScale. So that's always the beauty of working at SimScale, that I'm not just involved in recruitment, but have a lot of other responsibilities. So what I'm interested in, what I would like to work on. So yeah, definitely one of the great perks of working at a startup and at SimScale. That's our team. And before I continue, I would be a little bit curious to learn from you, and you don't have to speak out loud, but you can at least share it in the chat. I would be curious to learn what is your background, and also how experienced are you? Are you somebody who has already gained a little bit of professional experience? Are you an entry level? Are you just now entering the job market? It'd be great if you could share that. Thank you. Nice. So you probably all know SimScale anyways. Oh, Jousef, I just now saw your comment, right? 5 years at SimScale, yes. Perfect. So the reason why I'm asking is just because you, and just to clarify that again, so 3 years of experience, perfect. Thank you for sharing. So everything that I'm going to be sharing is not necessarily specific for Germany. It's also great, used SimScale before. It's not necessarily specific to Germany. It really is, a lot of it is specific to SimScale. So whatever I'll be sharing, I hope it's going to be helpful to you. Obviously, not just to SimScale, also to other companies. But generally, I think this can be helpful to somebody who's just entering the job market, or also just in general, somebody who's already had 10 years of experience. So what I'll be sharing with you may be more applicable to SimScale or to Germany, although even at SimScale, we're super international, so we may not be looking at the typical German CV as you may see, or as you may have to provide with other companies. But generally, I hope this is going to be helpful to you. So once again, feel free to also share your experience when you applied at places, as this really should be us exchanging experiences rather than me always telling you this is how you need to do it. I mean, there are so many variations to it. All right, what we'll speak about today, your expectations. I would like to know what you want to learn from this workshop today. I'll share with you what SimScale's recruitment process looks like. We'll talk about your application, writing a CV, preparing for interviews, and then I'll be sharing with you what's important to SimScale during interviews, assessment tasks, and then at the very end, if we still have time, we'll talk about our open roles, how we work, our perks, if you don't know that already, if you haven't clicked to our careers page yet. I would like to know from you, what are your expectations from today? What would you like to learn or talk about? Yep, that's good. We'll be covering that. Yep. That's quite a specific question. What is expected from a CFD engineer? Let me just, I can't take any notes at this moment, so I'll write that down here because the other questions we'll be covering anyways. If I don't talk about it, please remind me and just ask the question as we go through the presentation. Okay. By the way, as we talk about or as we go through the presentation, you'll see a lot of our lovely, or a lot of my, I say our, Jousef is not at SimScale anymore, although it sometimes feels like he never left, but yeah, you'll see a lot of my lovely colleagues here at SimScale. All right, so let me go to the next slide. All right, SimScale's recruitment process. So you can also see that on our careers page. It was important to us, so we updated that 2 years ago from a very old careers page with not many information to we want to show somebody who's applying at SimScale, somebody who's applying in general. We wanted to show them what's our culture like, what do we pay attention to in our, or what does our recruitment process look like. So you can also find all of that on our careers page. So generally what our recruitment process looks like, and you also get this as a presentation when you apply at SimScale. Maybe some of you have already applied, who knows? So we have 4 steps for the majority of our roles, and that's a recruiter interview. So you'll speak with either my colleague Sabrina or myself, and then we have the hiring manager interview as a second step. And then the third step is a job-specific assessment task. This can be a take-home test, which is also the case for the majority of our roles, or it can be a live assessment. I'll share with you in a little bit what exactly that means. And then in the fourth step, we have a panel interview. And then if everything works out well, we have the offer conversation, and then obviously, welcome to SimScale. So, and I'll be sharing that in more detail. The recruitment process really at SimScale is your chance to show us what your job-specific experience is, what your skill set is, and also your communication skills. So we really do pay very, very close attention to team fit, culture fit. So that is something that other companies may look at as well or may not look at, but it's very important to us. We're still a relatively small team compared to other companies, so we really do make sure that every team member that goes through the recruitment process feels comfortable with us. We want to feel comfortable with them, so team and culture fit are very, very important to us, besides, of course, the technical or the job-specific skill set as well. But yeah, we want to make sure that the person joining SimScale, that we actually like that person and that we can imagine working with them. Let me just see. What sort of projects would you like to see in my CV? Okay. All right, then one more time in a little bit more detail. The recruiter interview is typically 15 to 30 minutes. So we usually send out a 15-minute invite. Can sometimes go up to 30 minutes, sometimes after 15 minutes, we know everything, and that's also totally fine. So it's not necessarily the longer the better, but usually, yeah, between 15 to 30 minutes. I'll also be sharing with you in a little bit what exactly we typically cover in this conversation. So here it's really just some a first overview of what it looks like at SimScale. So don't worry, you'll be hearing about it in more detail. But yeah, this is really your first chance to meet somebody at SimScale, to introduce yourself to them, and obviously also to ask us questions. It's always a two-sided process. It's not just about us finding the right team member, it's also about you finding your place. So that really goes to every company that you're applying for. It's not just about the company and you're in a spot where you're desperate to find something, you really need to make sure that you like that company that you're applying for. And then we have the hiring manager conversation. Usually that is between 30 to 45 minutes. It depends a little bit on the team. Sometimes it can also be 60 minutes. Let's say it's a little bit more, the role is a little bit more advanced or more experienced, more senior. But yeah, most of them are between 30 to 45 minutes, a little bit more job specific or a little bit more technical, so to say, where, yeah, once again, you will get the chance to speak with the hiring manager, learn about the team even more, introduce yourself, and really share what your job specific knowledge is. And then we have an assessment task. This is, we've tried out different things. So we have two options at the moment. We have an assessment task or a live assessment, which sometimes sounds a little bit scary. A live assessment, what does that mean? So for the assessment task, or for the, we also call it take-home test, that is something where we will share it with you, and then you get to work on it. Let's say you are a CFD engineer, then usually what we do is we want to see, how do you perform a simulation on our platform? How would you present that to the team? So especially, maybe that already covers your experience, what our expectations are from a CFD engineer. It depends a little bit. So we have two teams where you might be able, or potentially 3 teams where you might be able to fit with your knowledge. So that could be our pre-sales team, so that's application engineering, or our customer success team, so that's post-sales. So you would be working on onboarding existing customers or new customers, whereas in pre-sales you really work with potential customers. So let's say you are a CFD engineer and you would like to work in pre-sales, then we will share an assessment task with you. So you will get a PDF document with a description on it. So you will know what to do. And then you work with the SimScale platform. So this is usually what a task will look like, and then you will actually present it to the team. So actually, in case of the pre and post sales team, there's actually a 5th step in between. But usually, let's say you are a software developer, then we would share a task with you. Once again, all of the details will be on this task or on this document, and then you will work on it and actually share your code with us. And then in the last step, we have a panel interview where it's a little bit of a combination. It's technical, but also non-technical. Sometimes you can't avoid not being technical when you have a technical background, right? So in the panel interview, it's usually 3 to 4 people from SimScale. It's 90 minutes and 60 minutes where we focus on you and your skill set. We want to find out what are challenges that you have overcome, what are your achievements. So that is really the part where we focus even more so on the cultural fit, on the team fit. Do you fit the SimScale environment? This is usually what we cover in the last step in the panel interview. And then, so 90 minutes in total, 60 minutes where we ask you questions, and then 30 minutes will be your chance to ask us anything that you would like to know. Your application. I would like to know from you, what do you do before you apply at a company? How, maybe you can share like in 2 or 3 steps, what does the process usually look like? I see Jousef so far. Anybody else?
only have 2 points, Lisa. I think it would be interesting to see if cold emailing, in your opinion, works for you. Because I think you can be quite successful if you cold email people. Of course, it depends on your network and the work you do besides only studying. It would be nice to hear from you.
So you basically mean just like emailing people from the company?
Correct. For example, if I see David on LinkedIn, I would just cold email him and say, hey, by the way, David, cool work that you're doing. Do you currently hire CFD engineers? Something like that.
Probably the best way to do that is on LinkedIn, I would say, rather than via email. I would say LinkedIn is just like in general, if you want to connect with our team, always feel free to do that. Everybody is very, very nice, and maybe not everybody might be responding to you. A lot of us get a lot of messages, so we try our very best to get back to everybody, but at least like they will forward it to me internally and share with me or with Sabrina that somebody reached out to them. So I don't think, maybe don't contact 5 people at the same time. If you find 1 person or 2 people that you would like to reach out to, maybe a potential peer, somebody in that position. We've had that in the past too, where people really like connected on LinkedIn. They even spoke and talked about the role to get some insights. So I think definitely do that. If David replies to you, our CEO, yeah, definitely reach out to them. It's just really more the question in the end. Maybe don't overdo it. That would be my recommendation. And yeah, maybe don't send an email. I think LinkedIn is a good way to do that. Okay, so I have research company, check if the company is doing well. Yep, that's a good point. Projects being done there. Yeah, those are some really, really good points too. I'll go to the next slide. So very similar to what you wrote in the chat. So really ask yourself, does the job fit your skill set? Do you fit the requirements? And the question around requirements is always, it always depends. So some companies may be stricter on it. Luckily, and I really, really like that at SimScale, we're not super, super strict on it. So let's say we say 3 years of experience working as a customer success manager, for example. We are flexible here. So it also can be 10 years. It also can be 2 years. Typically, what we do look at though, if we say 3 years, then we at least expect some industrial experience. So if you see, if you don't see any specific, years of experience, then feel free to also apply as somebody who's freshly out of university. However, if you do see 1 to 2, 5 years, we're open to people that have less experience than that, but we're definitely looking for people who have that industrial, that practical experience. But yeah, in general, ask yourself, do I fit the requirements? Do you find the position interesting? Once again, it's not just about us finding a new team member, it's also about you finding the right opportunity. And we can only be successful in a position in a company if we actually truly like what we're doing. Otherwise, it may just be 6 months, 12 months, and you might be moving on. So really ask yourself, do you like the product? Do you like the position? Do you resonate with the culture? Most companies really try to showcase their culture as much as possible. We try that too on LinkedIn, on our Life at SimScale. So we really try, we publish around 9 posts per quarter. So that is quite a lot. We also try to share as much as possible on Instagram. So you really get the chance to see what is it like working at SimScale. But yeah, think about it. Even will you enjoy the environment? Think about the company size. Can you see yourself in a company of 1,000 employees, 2,000 employees, more than that? Or can you see yourself in a company of 50 employees? That is something, obviously, especially in startups, they may be growing as well, which is the case for SimScale. But think about it. Do you like the company size? Whatever you see on the website, does that fit your expectations and interests. So my recommendation would be make a list, write down what you're looking for, and really, really only apply at companies you find interesting. It will most certainly show in the recruitment process. I speak to many people and I can tell the difference right away between somebody who did a little bit of research, who enjoys or who finds it interesting what we do versus somebody who just sends out bulk applications. It really does make a difference, especially, once again, I'm speaking for SimScale here. It may be different at another company, but yeah, especially a company like SimScale, it does matter. So yeah, research is very, very important. Are there any questions or comments so far? Well, good. All right, what to add in a CV? So once again, do you look for somebody that fit requirements 100%? No. No company does and no company can. It's just impossible. So really look at it from that perspective. Well, now I can't really think of a good example or of a good similar metaphor, I guess. But yeah, no, it's just not possible. So a job description is one thing, but then there's an actual human being, a person. And in the end, if you don't, I mean, obviously, just as an example, if we look for somebody for a data engine, or let me think about it, for somebody who works in our infrastructure team, even here, we're actually quite flexible. Somebody in our infrastructure team, if you have no cloud experience at all, then that is probably something that where we might say, okay, we really are. I mean, this is somebody who works with AWS in our infrastructure team. So we are looking for somebody with cloud experience. But it doesn't have to be AWS. It also can be Google Cloud or Azure. So here we are a little bit flexible. Same with, like, we're currently looking for a data engineer. Doesn't have to be AWS, also can be another cloud provider. So it depends a little bit, but yeah, for most of our jobs, no, in the end, what we also really pay attention to is your mindset. And very, very important, are you willing to learn? There's a lot to learn, even after almost 3 years at SimScale. There is still so much I get to learn, which is great. And that is the type of mindset that we're looking for. But yeah, so once again about the CV, also think about it. There is no such thing as the perfect CV. Every CV is different. You are different from every person. So really just find your own style, what resonates the most with you, your background and your style. We see a lot of the same CVs just because there are online tools, and that's also totally fine. I mean, there are 1,000 ways to write a CV, so really just find your own way to do that and get help. Even myself, I use that too. I think I used Resume.io before. So I really take advantage of it. It's super easy. Some may cost a little bit, but it's worth it. You do it once and then you have a really nice CV. But yeah, so what to add in the CV? And again, on the right side, it's just one example. There are many, many variations, but at least keep it consistent, which if you do use one of those tools, they will help you to really keep it consistent. You don't have to play around with the font, with the format, style. It'll all be very easy, very similar. Add correct dates and location. Very important is location to us at SimScale. We're super open. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. We are open to helping you relocate to Munich or to Germany. We're also open to team members starting in other countries. Totally fine. But at least at the location, makes it nice to know where's this person located at the moment that we're talking to. And add correct dates, also very important. We don't really care if you, I mean, if you have been in several positions where you were only a certain amount of time, that's one thing, but at least be honest about it. We'll talk about it in the recruitment process. Sometimes there may be a lot of reasons as to why you changed from an employer relatively soon, and that's fine, but at least be open about it, be transparent about it. If you're currently job searching, I also see that a lot where people have it in their CV and it still says till present, and then I speak with them and they say they're not at their current company anymore. It's fine. I understand it makes it a little bit easier applying at companies, but also just keep it transparent and just be honest about it. Check for spelling mistakes. Keep it to 2 pages. That would be my personal recommendation. Don't make it too long. I know you're probably thinking, well, the CV, that's my chance to convince a company. I can do this in like 4 pages. Recruiters look at a lot of CVs. Hiring managers look at a lot of CVs. So my recommendation is really try to keep it as short as possible. And this also resonates, or this also relates to the previous one. Don't add too many details, but just enough to describe a position or a project. Add job-specific skills. So just as one example, at the moment we are looking for a meshing developer. And I look at a lot of applications, and if I don't see the word meshing in there, not at all, but if I see somebody worked on a CFD solver, then unfortunately I reject this person because I don't see meshing in there at all. So it somehow has to relate to the position. So really add the job-specific skills, keywords related to the position, and then also, like in this example, you can also add general skills on the side. Tech stack, for example, your programming languages, if you're a software developer, languages in general, although also here, maybe not a must. Cover letter, also very interesting question. Do we read cover letters? Honest answer, no, not really. Again, depends on the company too, but if you apply at SimScale, you don't have to write a cover letter. If you want to write a few personal words, my recommendation would be just keep it short. It's hard to read a one-pager when you go through a lot of applications, or just add, and you can also see that on this CV here, just write a summary, 1 to 2 sentences. You can even make that personal to SimScale. That's also great. I saw that recently, and we ended up hiring that person, not because of the summary, obviously, but you know, he personalized it, so that was really positive. So that would be my recommendation. But yeah, don't invest too much time in the cover letter. Again, some other companies may see this differently, but at SimScale, there's no need to. Sometimes we may ask somebody really junior to share some projects or to share with us like why they would like to work in sales. But yeah, for really 90% of our roles, 95% of our roles, no cover letter needed. Add your contact details, your LinkedIn profile, and link companies. That also helps because we do click on the companies, we're curious. I mean, we know a lot of companies, especially when it's from the simulation industry, so no need to add those. But yeah, at least try to link the companies so we can look at them. And once again, be honest about what you did and what you didn't do or haven't done. Totally fine, we can talk about it, but at least be honest about it. And here are a few examples. Once again, don't be too fixated on them. It's really just an example, but this would be something where I would say, okay, that's interesting. Here on the left side, you even see achieved. So it's really specific. And I would recommend that, you know, if a CV says had daily Scrum meetings, well, that's not very specific. We have lots of meetings too, but that doesn't say anything about my actual job. So really be specific about what you achieved, what projects you worked on. Highlight, if you worked on 20 projects, then highlight 2 or 3 of them. So think about what do you want to tell this person in 1 or 2 pages. Are there any questions so far? No? I'll move on. Yeah, so a few more examples. But yeah, it's easy. And once again, you'll find tools where you will get exactly those examples. So take advantage of them. You don't have to, doesn't have to be rocket science. Yes, do you need a photo? Very good question. Not saying yes as in you do one, but a good question. It's actually on here too. What not to add in a CV? Like I said before, too much irrelevant information, too many pages, incomplete or incorrect information, wrong or missing dates, missing location. I mean, that is really just something that we pay attention to. Also, another tip, we do click at somebody's LinkedIn profile. So keep it consistent with LinkedIn. Sometimes it is a little bit confusing if I click on the LinkedIn and then it says something completely different. And then also, like I said before, little to no skills and qualifications related to the job role, industry, or company you're applying for. So my tip, if you realize as you apply somewhere, oh, you have very little skills or no skills, qualifications related to the job, then maybe reconsider if you should apply. Because like I said, like the example with the meshing developer, if there is no meshing experience and we're looking for somebody who already has 1 to 2 years of experience, then we will reject that person because there's no practical experience. So really consider that. I added that here. I see a lot of times a CV in a table format, 7 pages long. And I have to say, it really is a red flag. So try not to do that. I also see that a lot. Projects separate from the actual position. It also makes it really, really hard to read a CV. So really write the position and then also write what your tasks were. Makes it the easiest to read. Because really think about it, we look at a lot of CVs. So it really does help the recruiter, and not just the recruiter, also the hiring manager. I'll read that question in a little bit. I'll just go through the rest here. Incorrect English, mistakes happen. That's totally fine. But if it's consistent throughout, it's a little bit questionable. Spelling, punctuation. Also, no need to share your hobbies, family information, your marital status. It doesn't matter. They used to do that in Germany, maybe no, I don't think it's legal anymore at this point. It used to be very common, but no need to put that there. Also not necessarily a photo. If you like, but no need to. You won't have any disadvantage if you don't put that on your CV. Let me see really quick. Yes, somebody in their final year of master's, could you please advise on when would be the best time to apply? So when would you be graduating? So sometime next year. Is that in spring or is that in summer? July. It's probably not the best answer. It depends. So, I mean, probably around this time might be just a little bit too early, but I could imagine like even some companies start like around January, February. So usually we're quite fast in the recruitment process. So from the day that you apply to you starting or to you signing the contract, it could be 3 to 4 weeks. Sometimes even faster. That would be the ideal scenario. We want to be as fast as possible. So yeah, it can be, I mean, for the most part, we wait for people for around 3 months until they start. So I would say that would be the longest. So probably start around like 3 to 5 months before, I would say. With us at the moment, we're not looking for any entry level team members. But if you can always send us an initiative application, and then we'll review your CV and see if there could be a potential first conversation, and we'll just go from there. So it depends a little bit on the company, to be honest. With us, yeah, usually when we advertise for a role, we're looking for somebody between yesterday and in 3 months. To answer that, maybe that's a little bit more helpful. So we're willing to wait for the right person to join us. I would be curious for an interview. Let's say you speak for the first time with a recruiter. What would you like to be asked in a very first conversation? Who's the fastest typer? About previous projects and how I approach a new project. Anybody else? Tell me about the last difficult problem you've solved. How did you come to a solution? Yep, that also is a good one. All right, let me show you what exactly we actually ask. And obviously, once again, very different from person to person, from candidate to candidate. But this is typically what I forgot this slide. This is usually what we ask in a very, very first 15 to 30-minute conversation. What does your typical day look like? What is your experience, a really job-specific experience, your current responsibilities? If you are depends a little bit on the position, if you're a software developer, your tech stack, or just really in general projects that you have worked on, and no need to share all of the projects that you've worked on, simply not possible in 30 minutes. Share the most relevant or the projects that you had the most fun with. Very, very important. Why did you apply at SimScale? And also, what is your reason to switch as a side question at some point? Let's say you're not an entry-level applicant. Why did you apply at SimScale? This is your first chance to show Sabrina and myself why you would like to join our team. So do your research. I've had conversations where people ask me in conversations, what does SimScale do? And it's not necessarily what a recruiter would like to hear, or anybody at SimScale. So really, we're still a small company, medium-sized company, but still small enough where it really does matter why you would like to join SimScale. So it relates to do your research, find out why you would like to join SimScale, and tell us that. And we also ask, what does your ideal next role look like? Why do we ask that? Because we would like to see, is that in line with the actual role? Is that in line with what we can offer? So usually if somebody says something, we're very transparent in the conversation and we say we can offer that or we cannot offer that. Similar with what kind of environment are you looking for? Do they feel comfortable in a startup environment, being very, very hands-on, thinking outside of the box, working outside of the scope of the job description? So this is the reason why we ask this. And then of course, formalities, starting date, salary, location. Do you want to work remotely? Do you want to work, do you want to relocate? So this is also what we cover in the first conversation. So we don't go super, super deep. It's just not necessarily always possible in 15 to 30 minutes. So we may dig deeper if you talk about a certain situation or a project, but not too much in detail. So here in this first conversation, no need to share let's say you have 10 years of experience, no need to share these 10 years, or even if you have 3 years of experience, share with us at the moment, what are your responsibilities? What does your typical day look like? Because imagine from our perspective, we need to find out, does this person, and we need to find out in 15 to 30 minutes, does this person have the skill set that is required for hour for this job that this person applied to. So really no need to go into a lot of details, but at least share with us what are your responsibilities, what's your experience, without going on a 15-minute explanation. And also think about the salary. Any questions? That should be pretty straightforward. What a hiring manager wants to find out, again, is a little bit similar, so not any big surprises, I would say. What are your responsibilities? And here, even more so, how relevant are they to SimScale, or how transferable is your skill set to SimScale? Once again, even here, it kind of continues throughout the recruitment process. Why would you like to work at SimScale? Accomplishments, what are you really good at? But also, hey, we're not perfect. What are you not good at? And what do you expect from the job, the team, and SimScale? Where would you like to develop? And also very important, your questions. What we want to find out during a panel interview, we have, so like I said before, we have 60 minutes during a panel interview. So this is usually where we really go a little bit deeper. So Jousef, what you shared, tell me about the last difficult problem you've solved. This is probably a question that hiring manager may ask, or that we really ask in a panel interview. So the panel interview is a little bit more behavioral. So we have these 3 areas that we focus on: your achievements, resilience, what did you do in difficult situations, how did you talk to other colleagues, are you somebody who really prefers to only work by themselves and who is not comfortable speaking up, for example, or speaking about challenges. So this is usually what we focus on during a panel interview. And also relationships. How do you interact with others? What is a collaborative environment to you? So this is really more, like I was saying before, around the team fit, culture fit. So these are just a few examples. Tell me about a team project when you had to take charge of the project. So we would like to see, when did you show initiative? Can you work autonomously? So at SimScale, it's really an environment where we work very, very collaborative. So we're not looking for people who only prefer to work by themselves. But at the same time, we are also looking for people who can work autonomously. So it's really a nice balance of both. And we want to see that in a panel interview. How are you able to face a challenge? Where did you fail? We have all failed, and we fail regularly. And it's also okay to talk about that and to learn from it, hopefully, in an ideal situation. Then the question is, what would you ask a recruiter, or not just a recruiter? What would you ask if you had the chance to speak to somebody from SimScale? Trying not to rush because we have 12 minutes left. How long does a project go on normally? It's a good question, but also a really tricky one, just because, again, depends a little bit. It depends on the team. Do you work on projects? Do you not work on projects? Obviously, we all have projects, but it's a very broad question. So just to share with you, how do we work at SimScale? We have quarterly objectives and key results. So we work with quarterly goals, which means that on a quarterly basis, you will have specific tasks and goals defined. I know it's a good question, but yeah, also a little bit tricky to answer. And how do I approach a new project? Yeah, really also here showing initiative, speaking with your supervisor, with your team, but also really coming up with coming up with a new project when we talk about your OKRs for next quarter. So that's typically, it goes both ways. It's not top down, it's really bottom up. So everybody gets the chance to really think about new projects and yeah, projects and tasks that they would like to work on. How will my working day look like? That's also a good one. Yeah. Here. So there are no right or wrong questions as long as you have questions. Ask us something. Don't just ask about the recruitment process. You can find that on our careers page. Ask us about a working day. We try to do our best, Sabrina and myself, although obviously the hiring manager will be able to tell you that even better, but we can at least share with you, how do we work? How often does the team meet? The OKRs that we work with. Do we work in Scrum teams? Do we work Agile? Things like this. How do you measure success? How does the team collaborate? Once again, these are just a few examples. Think about it. What is important to you and what do you want your future environment to look like? And ask the recruiter. Ask us anything that you would like to know. But if you don't ask at all, well, you can also say, I found out everything that I needed to know on our careers page, but at least keep it conversational. Tell us what you found out about us, rather than just leaving it as a one-sided conversation where only we as the recruiter or as the hiring manager ask you questions. Say, hey, I found on your careers page or on your blog, you wrote about this and that, and I really liked that. So tell us about it. Really, let's keep it as a conversation. It doesn't have to be us asking you all of the questions. So once again, how to convince in an interview. Once again, this is also, could be general, also SimScale specific. Check your virtual setup before, be on time. So if you're using Google Meet or Zoom for the first time, try it out before. It's also totally fine to be nervous. We're all human beings. I'm nervous at times, especially, I mean, think about it. There are some roles that I've never recruited for before. Now I've recruited, yeah, I would say for a lot of roles at SimScale, but also at times it's a new role for me. I'm still learning as I go. So I'm also at times a little bit nervous, and that's okay, but just keep in mind, speak clear, talk about what you did. A lot of times we hear we did as a team, and obviously you worked in a team, and that's also very important, but emphasize what are your personal accomplishments and be engaged. It doesn't have to be a one-sided conversation where we ask you questions. Keep it engaged, ask us even throughout the conversation. That's totally fine, as even more so if it is a conversation rather than a one-sided interview where only we ask you questions. That's even better. So talk about key skills, your accomplishments, share examples. So when you worked on a project, what exactly did it look like? Don't just share the 3 examples or the 3 projects. Share what exactly did you do? What was your accomplishment? And also, don't be afraid to talk about failures. Share briefly who you are. It depends a little bit. Some companies may want to hear your entire career path in a first conversation. We don't. So keep it in a couple of minutes where you share about what you did, where you share what your experience is. It doesn't have to be a 10-15 minute explanation of what you did. We'll always ask follow-up questions. So my recommendation would be to keep it a little bit more brief in the beginning, and then we might ask you follow-up questions rather than you speaking for 10-15 minutes. And yeah, I've said that often enough now. Ask questions and do research about the company that you're applying at. And be authentic, be yourself. Honestly, if it doesn't work out at the company, I've applied to places, I've been rejected, and I know it can be harsh. I know it can be really frustrating, but still try to be as authentic as possible. Every company looks for different traits, qualifications, and experiences. So only if it didn't work out at SimScale or at another company, you will find the right opportunity, but just really stay true to yourself, because we, at least at SimScale, we notice if you're unsure or if you don't show us who you are. And then once again, what is important to SimScale, which was kind of like the entire presentation, sort of. But yeah, once again, like I said before, what do we pay attention to in the recruiter interview? So it's really a first conversation, show us what you're good at, and we kind of want to see, does this match with what we can offer, with what we're looking for? Are you suitable for a performance-based company? Also very important, since we do work with quarterly objectives and goals. Hiring manager interview, can the applicant actually fulfill the job and requirements? So here it's also technical, non-technical questions. And then the panel interview, like I said, is focusing a little bit more on these behavioral questions. So we usually talk, it's also here tricky to talk about an entire career. If somebody has 10, 15 plus years of experience, if somebody has like, let's say 5 to 8 years, it's a little bit easier to talk about every position. But here we go a little bit deeper because we weren't always able to do that in the first conversations. And then we have our tasks. So this can be, so yeah, like I said in the beginning, for somebody who's a CFD engineer, this can be a task where you really work on the platform, where you simulate a project and then you present that to the team. If you're a software developer, you will work on a programming task. We want to see what your programming skill set is. Or we sometimes also have a live assessment where you will meet with the hiring manager and you will show them hands-on what your skill set is. Like, let's say we recently just hired somebody as a sales operations specialist. So we wanted to see, how does this person work with numbers, with Google spreadsheets? Like, we wanted to see like that technical aspect of the role. Oh, now I rushed a little bit through it. Do you have any questions? We have 4 minutes left. Anything that I haven't said yet? Oh, I see here. Do you expect a new hire to be work ready on day one, or is that SimScale has a training period? Very good question. You have to be ready on day one. No, I'm kidding. We have an onboarding. So when you start at SimScale, you will have a really nice onboarding plan. It involves meeting different team members, so getting to know the team on from a personal perspective, but then also job related, of course. It depends. Some people start with goals already with their OKRs, others don't. So it really depends a little bit on the team. But yeah, usually the beginning is, we always say, don't stress yourself. You will have enough time to really overwork yourself if you really want to, although we pay attention to that you have a healthy work-life balance. But yeah, you'll get enough time to learn while at the same time really being hands-on. So at SimScale, you won't just be in a training for a month and just observe. You'll be shadowing others while also making first calls if you work in sales, or already meeting the customer if you work in customer success or application engineering. So it's really a nice combination of learning, but also really doing hands-on work. And also what's nice at SimScale, let's say you do work in customer success or sales, there is no one script that we follow. Let's say you are in a customer conversation. Everybody has their own style, and we recognize that, we encourage that. So everybody in the end will find their own style. Here are our open roles at the moment. It's not a lot, it's really mostly in engineering. So probably around next year, we might have some more roles in customer success, application engineering, but at least at the moment, it's mostly in engineering. And then we have one role in marketing. Now here one more time, how we work at SimScale with objectives and key results. So with goals, so it is a performance-based company, but at the same time, if you're committed, sometimes things don't work out in the end, but if you're committed, if you did everything possible, we'll see that for sure. We have regular feedback meetings, goes both ways. So we share feedback about our supervisors, team leads, about the executive team, and then we get feedback as team members. Performance evaluations. So that's also at the end of each quarter, very transparent company meetings. And then every 2 weeks, and then we have our scrums or team meetings. So you'll meet your team members on a daily basis, or depends a little bit on the team. So if you are curious to join SimScale, also feel free to click on our careers page. I don't want to do too much advertisement, but yeah, it's a very, very nice environment. Lots of personal growth, learning and development opportunities. We have now Daniel, my colleague Daniel, who focuses on learning and development. So very, very important at SimScale. Flexible working hours. You can work from anywhere in the world. You will also get the chance to come to Munich. And if you do live in Munich, we have a recruiting event on December 7th. So there's 3 different time slots at 10, 12, or at 4 p.m. So you can, well, shortly, if we haven't already, I don't think my colleague Taylor has advertised it already, but we'll advertise it on LinkedIn. So join us in our Munich office if you do happen to live in Munich.
I'll try to join.
Cool.
But I think also a good tip, Lisa, would be, and feel free to disagree, is what I feel is that if you approach it from such a way that you think, what can I give to the company, rather than thinking, what can the company give me in terms of salary and benefits, I think that's also a good way to think about it. Because in the beginning, before I started working for SimScale, I was actually doing stuff for free in the forum, helping people on a consistent basis. And then it just happened that they just recruited me without even seeing my CV and seeing the work that I've done beforehand without even applying. Yeah. So I think that puts you in the top 1% usually, cold emailing and doing things for the company rather than saying, I'll go the classical path. At least that worked for me.
Totally. I mean, we're super open. I mean, there are certain roles where we don't get a lot of applications. So we really reach out to people on LinkedIn. So from a lot of colleagues, I never saw their official CV. It was just through a conversation on LinkedIn. But at least if you do that, maybe share a few details on your LinkedIn profile so it's easier to see like what exactly you're doing. But yeah, I mean, generally at SimScale, we're super open to anybody. Basically, it doesn't have to be the traditional way. You send us your application with all of your qualifications, with your cover letter. No, I mean, we're really very modern in that aspect and very open to different ways of applications. If you want to send us a video, you can do that.
A rap song about simulation. Someone could do
Actually,
that.
we did try like a video tool, but it wasn't quite, people are too nervous. I mean, I would be horrible recording myself for an application. So yeah, we tried that a little bit. And then and that's also, once again, nobody's perfect. We're also trying out different things. We've had 7-hour on-site days to now we do 90 minutes in the last step. So we've already really condensed it a lot from a lot of interviews to now you have one final 90-minute conversation.
Even though a lot of people don't, and then we can wrap it up, Lisa, I don't want to keep you for too long. I think a lot of people don't realize that it's highly a competitive field. They think they just apply for the position and see how it goes. That's, I think, one of the reasons they bulk apply. So they have one CV, not tailored for one specific job, and then just send it out to a bunch of companies instead of thinking, how can I be a 1% applicant? As I said, like maybe reach out to people that you know, build your network, do projects on the side.
I see that a lot, especially for people who want to relocate. And we're totally open to that. If you come from outside of Europe and you would like to relocate and that is your main reason, I get it. That's totally fair. I mean, we have such an international team. We support them. We really have a great relocation support. Once again, Daniel is doing a great job. So that's totally fair, but still maybe the bulk CVs or bulk applications work for some companies, but maybe not for the medium-sized ones. So really think about it, do your research. And besides your relocation to Germany, think about why would you like to join that organization?
Yeah, good tips. Really appreciate it, Lisa. Hope to have you in a future session. Let's see. But yeah, really, really insightful. I hope the audience could take away some things from it. If you don't have any more questions, they can reach out on LinkedIn if they want, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. If you have any questions, reach out to us, to Sabrina or myself or anybody else at SimScale.
Really cool.
Thank you so much.
Lisa, really appreciate it. Nice session, and I'll talk to you in either one day or like a couple of hours.
Yes, we'll do that. Thank you so much, everybody. Nice to meet you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.